Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you with us for another episode of VoteProPot-Cast. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
And I'm Andrew McCready's.
Today we're going to cover a number of stories. First of all, many cannabis companies, it seems, are underperforming in the first quarter of 2019. We're going to take a look at that. Jay and Andrew both have some dispensary updates to give you. An article about whether you can legally smoke cannabis on the moon. Jay has a story about archaeologists finding two, not one, but two 2,400-year-old solid gold bongs.
Yeah.
A huge marijuana bust in Santa Barbara County in California, which is odd because marijuana is legal in California, but Andrew's going to explain that. Jay has some celebrity news for you, but first, Andrew is going to start with a story on marijuana legalization efforts hitting a wall in both New Jersey and New York State.
So in March, both states seemed they were just like days away from legalizing cannabis, and Governor Cuomo said it was one of his priorities was in the first 100 days to legalize cannabis. But what happened in the 11th hour, just hours away from the vote in New Jersey, the campaign abruptly collapsed. So it seems like for months the two states were locked in a race to legalize, see who was going to have the bragging rights to being the first legal state. But as I say, in the last hour, it was taken off the ballot. And what that essentially did was took the wind out of the sails in New York. It sort of emboldened the opponents and eased pressure on some of the legislation's most important allies, including Governor Cuomo. But despite the deadline that Cuomo set, a lot of people are saying, well, we're just going to put it off till 2020 now. Which in some ways I kind of understand, because when he said we're going to do it in 100 days, I was thinking, I mean, he must have a template all set up. They must have already figured out all the intricacies of setting up regulations. But that wasn't the case. So everyone's going, well, you're not going to do it in 100 days.
No.
So yeah, take your time and do it right.
He probably didn't have his votes counted either.
Yeah.
Do you think that's it? Do you think they don't have the votes?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they did, but I'm sure there was some backdoor, back alley deals that was probably the reason it was taken off. Because I haven't seen any good reason for the reason.
Right.
I mean, people are offering excuses, but they're just the same old excuses.
Greasing some palms and whatnot.
The sausage making that is legislation.
Yeah. Well, when also people sort of stopped talking about it. All these legislators, they have other stuff to do. They got budgets to set and things. Mm-hmm. So we got to sort of keep. Not only do we have to keep trying to convince people to change their minds and vote yes, we got to make sure the people who have already decided to vote yes are still enthusiastic.
Right.
Well, I wonder
because
could
be easily distracted.
Could this have anything to do with timing and maybe wanting it to, be on the ballot or be more visible during
for 2020?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like that. At the beginning of the year, we were saying 2019. They're going to do it this year. More and more, I'm going. Also, guys, it's May. It ain't going to happen. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen this year. And I think a lot of the people, like you say, Jay, a lot of this might be because there's going to be a issue on the 2020 ballot.
And driving people to the polls.
I think you may be right. Positioning. Well, if you have any insight about this, if you're from New York or New Jersey, or if you have any opinions, no matter where you are, we'd love to hear from you. Check us out at VoteProPot.com.
Or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com or call our message line at 240-257-2441, and we'll put you on the show.
And please like and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Well, it seems that the first quarter of this year has not been the most lucrative one for many cannabis companies. According to 420intel.com, many cannabis companies are reporting sales that are smaller than expected, and the market has been trading down in the recent weeks. Especially cannabis companies in Canada have releasing their financial reports quarterly, and things have not been going so great for them. Stocks in many cannabis companies have been going down over the last few weeks, and some industry insiders apparently are attributing this to just the general downturn of the market affected by the trade war. And that could be very much the case in recent weeks because, they thought they had this deal and then apparently they didn't. And so they're going back to tariffs and, the market just took a battering. And so it's made back some gains since then, but I can only imagine how this is affecting cannabis stocks. According to the Financial Post from Canada, the Royal Bank of Canada analyst Douglas Mayam wrote, quote, "We believe supply constraints continue to hold back financial results for the industry as a whole, but even more so for CannaTrust, given the popularity of the company's products in the recreational market." Now, Canada's CannaTrust is one of the companies that apparently stood out for poor earnings reports. So, there's still a very rocky investment for canna stocks for those people who are trying to get in early. There's some headwinds and some ups and downs, and folks are either going to have to kind of hold on to their money for now or weather the storm.
Well, there was an article yesterday in CNBC.com with the same kind of portrayal of the market, only for American company MedMen. MedMen's one of the biggest cannabis retailers in the United States, and they are hurting too. So I don't know if it's just Canada. I mean, this article...
No, why are these companies hurting?
Well, I'll tell you what it says in this article.
Profitability?
Well, I'll tell you what it says in this article. MedMen is set up in primarily in California, and they just secured a crisis loan of $100 million credit line, actually, because they're shitting money, man. They're just... MedMen is worth about $1.6 billion right now, which is huge, but they were worth over $3 billion a year ago. So they're in dire straits, borrowing money, but their claim is the problem is California. And do you know that BDS Analytics, as mentioned in here, they did a study. They estimate that 80% of the cannabis market in California is still black market.
Yep,
that's amazing,
and we all know the reason why.
Yeah, and that's what they say here. It's the taxes and the regulations are just squashing them. They just can't keep up with it.
Right, and the taxes the rates are too high to undercut the black market. The black market is undercutting the legal market just because it's cheaper. Jay, you've got some celebrity news to fill us in on now, don't you?
I do. I got a couple. I got good news and bad news on that front. Which one do you want to hear, guys?
How about the good news first?
The good news first. All right. Great actor Morgan Freeman has made a statement. Actually, it's funny. He was being interviewed by the Daily Beast, and I guess he was pushing his new movie, which is called 5 Flights Up. And he kind of got off on a tangent and started talking about the fact that marijuana has really rescued him from his pain as a result of fibromyalgia that he has in an arm. And he went on for a few minutes about it, and he said he's tried all kinds of meds and all this stuff, and the only thing that has worked for him is marijuana. So we can add Morgan Freeman to our Vote Pro Pot list of celebrity endorsers. All right,
sir.
Now the bad news. Roger Daltrey, guys. Roger Daltrey was a douche at a concert at Madison Square Gardens. He was performing recently, and he stopped the performance to speak directly to fans in the front row who were smoking joints. And he went off on them. He said, "Thank you very much."
What did he say?
He said, "Thank you very much for coming. I've got to tell you, the ones of you smoking grass," the fact that he called it grass, "down there in the front row, I'm totally allergic to it. I'm not kidding," he said. And he said, you fucked up my night. now I can't sing and blah, blah, blah. He went off on him. So,
What a wad.
yeah, no shit.
You know, this is the same guy who hoped that he died before he got old, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the same
I got
guy,
news for you, Roger. You got old.
he looks pretty good, though. I got to say, for whatever his age is, he looks pretty good.
Yeah, Daltrey was always one of those rock and roll screamers, and I think he more or less lost his voice back in the 1980s, man. You know, I think he's just using it as an excuse. Yeah, I can't sing because of marijuana smoke. All right. And Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department just announced that they made a marijuana bust. Now, they raided a grower in Los Alamos and found hundreds of thousands of illegal plants.
Whoa.
And thousands of pounds of processed marijuana. Now, they're showing pictures of this, and it's like a greenhouse, you know, and it's massive.
Did you say hundreds of thousands of plants?
Hundreds of thousands, yeah. I mean, these people were not hiding.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, and obviously, but as I read the article, and what really happened was they busted this grower whose license was gotten illegally, or there was some shady. They didn't go into details. There was some shady about their getting their license,
Gotcha.
and also now they also found that hundreds of thousands of plants. Some of that weed was getting into the black market.
Gotcha.
Was finding, so they were purposely selling into the black market. Now, this facility looks like they've invested millions and millions of dollars trying to, they got their permits. They're trying to do everything by the rules, and then it's so heavily taxed that sales are down, and they're like struggling trying to keep their heads above water, and they resorted back to their old ways and selling on the black market, get some cash, probably to keep their heads above water. Which was wrong. I'm not justifying their actions, but I'm saying it's kind of under. I don't think these guys are drug cartels. They're probably just desperate. Next week, I'm going to do a story about illegal grows in the forests of the Northwest and how they've gone down. There's not as many anymore. And one of the forestry people said one of the reasons we haven't busted that many is because we're not really actively looking for them as much, because a lot of the federal money and a lot of the law enforcement are not looking for illegal grows anymore because they're concentrating on the gray market. So what do I think you're going to start seeing are more companies that look legit, that are operating, that are still, got their feet or hands in the black market. That's who the cops are going after now.
Right, those that are playing fast and loose with the regs.
Right. They're going after the gray market. Now, how far they'll do that? Are they going to start busting people who live in New York and driving to Massachusetts to get a quarter ounce? I mean, are they going to bust those guys or what?
Or guys like this who have 100,000 plants.
I'd be willing to bet that across the country, around legal states, there are investigations going on right now into the gray market.
Well, it makes sense, I guess. If they're going to use those resources, you might as well go after the big guys who are, that's a...
Well, I don't know. Let's see what happens. The law enforcement say sometimes they'll go after the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, that's true. But that's a pretty big violation. The guy's got 100,000 plants.
Going from Santa Barbara, California to outer space. This is a story from Civilized Life website. It says our galaxy will seem a lot smaller in the near future as space tourism emerges as a new sector in the travel industry. Now, I don't know how distant or near that is. I think that's kind of a little further off than we think. But there are a lot of other countries and private, I think Elon Musk company is working on, sending tourists into outer space. But here's the question. Will you be able to smoke weed legally in outer space? If they send tourists to an asteroid or the moon, what's the laws as far as that's concerned? Well, apparently that's where experts like Frans van der Dunk, and it sounds like an Irish guy, I guess.
Yeah, Frans. Right.
Or Italian, maybe. Frans van der Dunk is a professor of law at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And recently, he published an article to settle an old space question: who owns the moon? Turns out nobody owns the moon. Now, we planted our flag there 50 years ago, actually this summer. But I think there was international agreement that it was not a colonization. It was an exploration. So we weren't claiming ownership of the moon.
This is according to Franz.
So if the moon doesn't belong to any country, then the laws of those countries don't apply to the people on the moon, right? Not exactly.
No.
According to this article, going into space doesn't free you from being held accountable for your actions once you're back on Earth. So if you go to the moon and get high and go back to, Oklahoma or somewhere where it's still illegal, you better not let them find out because they'll bust you for smoking weed.
Well, don't you have to go through security, though? How are you going to get your weed on the rocket ship?
Now, this is all science fiction, really, at this point. But it's a fun idea to think about, It's kind of interesting. And there is a law professor, Frans van der Dunk, who thinks that this is something worth settling in court. So we'll keep our eyes on that and see how the law comes down.
Do we really care? And three of us are going to be worm food by the time anybody goes to the moon.
Well, actually, they might have greater ramifications. So let's say one day we do start having large space stations and colonies on other planets or whatever, and we're going to have to be growing,
that's true.
Our own food and whatever. The hemp plant would be a good thing to grow.
Sure,
it would.
I mean, because you can use it for so many different things.
Yeah.
So it's not the question: can you smoke? Can you grow on the moon? And how much could you get for an ounce of weed grown on the moon, man? Jeez.
Oh man. Lunar dope, man. That would be... Coming back down to Earth, this would kind of fall under the reefer sadness category, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. As it turns out, a gentleman by the name of Antonio Pescaro just set a record. He's in Florida for spending the most time in prison for a nonviolent cannabis offense. He just spent 39 years for a nonviolent cannabis offense in Miami.
Oh,
now, he was a Navy pilot in the Cuban Navy, and I guess and then was captured by the guerrillas, and so that's how old this guy is. And he was part of the band Pigs Invasion. He was trained by the CIA. In 1977, he joined a organization to smuggle Colombian weed into the United States, and he helped smuggle like 600,000 pounds in. I mean, it's a lot. And so anyway, he got busted in Guatemala, and they said, tell us everything you know, or we're going to throw the book at you. He goes, man, I'm not going to rat on my friends. I broke the law. I'll take the punishment. And I'm military trained. I'm not going to talk, man. I just against my fiber. And they gave him 60 years in jail.
Oh my God,
for nonviolent.
That's ridiculous. And he served nearly 40 of them.
Meanwhile,
damn.
Right. Meanwhile, cannabis, the big debate in cannabis in Florida is should they be able to smoke, bud or just oil?
The poor guy's spending in jail.
Right. Meanwhile, they're taking cannabis tax dollars and upgrading his cell.
Right.
Yeah. While he watches murderers and rapists come and go.
God, how old did you say he is, Andrew?
Now he's 84 years old. He got busted when he was 45 years old.
Jeez.
Wow.
And not only that, he was an immigrant, so now he faces deportation at 85 years old.
Give the guy
just
a
let
break.
the guy. He has family in Miami. Just, how long,
How much injustice are you going to pile on top of injustice after a while? Come on.
And I think it's stories like this when, local judges or governors can go, just leave the guy alone. He's got a family. They're going to take care of him.
Yeah, I think a letter to Governor DeSantis of Florida.
Good call.
If you folks in Florida want to think about this and help this guy out, I bet he'd be willing to give this guy a break.
Let's hope. He deserves one now.
Let's see.
There is some solid gold paraphernalia that's been around quite a while, hasn't it?
This article's been floating around the internet for a week or so. I saw it in Health Magazine. And archaeologists have uncovered two 2,400-year-old pure gold bongs that were used by Aryan tribal chiefs to smoke cannabis during ceremonies. The historic drug paraphernalia was found alongside 7 pounds of other gold items when an area of land was dug up in Russia to make way for power lines. So what they did is obviously they found this it was like a little vault, a small stone vault. And when they opened it, they found all these gold things in it. And they found 2 items that were solid gold that looked like bongs, but they weren't sure. So what they did is they actually sent them out to criminologists who did some tests on the residue. And sure enough, they found traces of cannabis and opium. So, and along with some writings from that period historically, they deduced that they used these items to smoke both cannabis and opium during ceremonial circumstances. So it's pretty cool. I mean, this area and the stuff found in this vault are deemed to be from the 9th century BC and up to maybe the 4th century.
Wow.
So AD. So yeah, that's
so this and that other story I did about the tomb they found the guy with 1 3/4 pounds of weed of Sinsemilla. You know, well, wonder if they knew each other.
What if they partied together? Well, it shows you, and we've talked about this, for how long human beings have been using this plant for different reasons, medically, in this case, ceremonial. But, this plant has been around and been used by human beings for a long-ass time. I mean, it might be up to 10,000 years, they say.
Yeah, and somehow our species has managed to survive. Unbelievable.
Yes. Yep.
And also, they figured out thousands of years ago, if they don't pollinate the female plant, they get a high THC product. I mean, they figured that out centuries ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that millennia ago.
Right.
So we're going to party like it's
2000, yeah,
1999 BC. Okay, I have a story here out of Massachusetts. And I think they're having the same issue in California. And that is there are towns that are banning dispensaries from opening in their city limits. But they are sharing on the cannabis tax profits. Now, some people have a problem with that. And
that's not fair.
Well, I kind of understand both sides. But also, I mean, there's towns I know that won't allow lottery machines or state-run lotteries,
or even selling alcohol,
and also, and yeah, definitely alcohol too. But that doesn't mean the people who live there aren't spending. I mean, they could have a couple heavy users that account for more tax revenue than they're getting,
like you and your county
that came out of that community.
It all goes in the general fund.
Well, that's a good point. I see what you're saying. And these are basically like counties or jurisdictions that decided they don't want dispensaries in their jurisdiction.
Right. There's little towns or communities that say that they voted to not allow retail cannabis. I mean, you can still, it's still legal in the state. You can still take it home and smoke it, but just can't buy it in the community. It's not like alcohol.
I don't see anything wrong with that. It's essentially zoning. I mean, it happens everywhere in the country. You know where I live, there's certain areas where you can't build a McMansion or you can't put a gas station, or you can't. It doesn't mean you can't buy gas or you can't go to the next county. So, I mean, I don't have any problem with it personally. It's there. If the people in that jurisdiction don't want to have a dispensary, oh well. I mean, even some of the rules with shopping centers, there are some shopping centers in some areas where they won't let you have a vape store, or they won't let you have a XXX movie store. Not that anybody has those anymore, but you know what I mean. A strip, you can't have a strip club, So I guess it's the same idea, basically.
I think the XXX movie stores more or less went out of business when the internet came up.
Show my age.
Yeah, right.
What's this interweb thing, man?
Well, folks, we're glad you joined us today. There's so much more to go over. If you have any ideas for articles or updates that you'd like to see, let us know. You can give us a comment at the down at the very bottom of the show description page here, or you can go online to VoteProPot.com.
Or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com. Call our message line at 240-257-2441, and we'll put you on the show.
And please like, follow, share, comment. on our LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. But here I am in New York City, hiding out in Central Park, getting kidnapped by the police today sometime before dark. But I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. The judge looked down upon me, frowned. He said, "Kid, get on your way. Just don't start out your morning with espresso and a J." I said, "I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day." Hitched on out to Portland, caught a ride up to BC, took the bus over to the neighborhood to have a bowl with my coffee. Now I'm up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. Smoking good old Sensimilla